Alright, well let's see how our first video is doing. Hey, I think I finally fixed our audio, So, thank you. Holy shit.
This is more than we ever expected, and deserve. We want to thank everyone who watched, commented, shared, discussed. This was such a shock to us, and we're so happy to have sparked such a conversation.
We'd like to especially thank the content creators who reacted to our video. Game Theory themselves reacted, which just blew our minds, but we also want to thank Rytoast, She's Always Nervous, ID's Fantasy, Gibby, everyone. We love and watch all of you, and this was like a weird trip for us.
We had a lot of questions after our video, but because we didn't want to dwell on just one video or one theory, and instead move on to our next theory for another fandom, Amy Rose Design Analysis, Sonic the Hedgehog, we decided to host a live stream to answer some frequently asked questions. That stream was 4 hours long.
I like that the franchise has... Why is he on screen? Okay.
So we just wanted to rapid fire some frequently asked questions and some important updates to the theory we've had in the meantime. Then we can finally get to work on talking about our beautiful baby girl. Yes, the two of us are sisters. Cori's pronouns are she, they, and I'll take any pronouns you got.
MapHat brought up that the multiple simultaneous springlock failures could have just as easily been referring to multiple springlocks in the same suit failing rather than multiple suit failures. Yeah, that's fair, makes sense, could be either or.
Also pointed out that the Fredbear mask isn't a perfect one-to-one with Into the Pit. That's also fair. In my defense, I was blinded by my desire to use my favorite meme. Also would like to apologize for making MapHat read this one out loud.
People pointed out the Bite of 83 was probably not a springlock failure, as it could be, it could not be. Fredbear does stop moving after the bite rather than keep performing, but we do think that, at the very least, it was chalked up to a springlock failure by Fazbear Entertainment to save face. No, it's not a problem with our safety, it's just these specific suits. Look, we retired them, we're safe now.
Do you have any DCI theories made post-video? Yeah, they'll end up in an upcoming theory vid you probably won't expect them to appear in. Short answer is, we do think that Shadow Bonnie is probably the DCI Agony, and someone on Rytoast's podcast suggested recently that Shadow Freddy could be the MCI Agony, so we're really vibing with that.
Someone in our comments suggested that Mike could have tipped off the police to the bunker's location, which could be how they found it for FNaF 6. Loving that.
Does movie Golden Freddy Kid being a boy with a striped shirt and the same hair color as Vanessa strengthen your bite victim 5th kid theory? Yes it does.
Speaking of which, could Crying Child be the vengeful spirit? Yeah, there's really no evidence against it, but we personally just have more evidence to Mike. Specific UCN lines lead more towards Mike and can't be explained by Crying Child, like "you knew I'd find you eventually." The Red Lake scene has William screaming Mike and Henry's name, again, the two people in there. Mike was the character who went on a multi-year vengeance quest with a character arc that didn't seem to end otherwise. Are you saying that William actively sent Michael down to the bunker to die? Kinda, yeah. We don't think he chessmaster planned him to die. He's more useful alive, technically, but he just didn't give a shit about his safety and sent him to the basement filled with robots who wanted to kill him. That's what we think Michael was so pissed about.
In the logbook, how could the crossword be spelling Altered's name when Faded is the one who wrote my name? They wrote that on all the pages with hints, yes, but the hints are in altered text, meaning that Altered is the one who is spelling out the name. Altered already messed with the crossword to write who are you and what is your name, which would be a weird question if they knew the name of the person they were talking to. Probably my name was in Faded's broken attempt to respond. Also, we're not saying the entire crossword was altered, but that the coordinates being given through altered text and not anything Faded wrote down makes us think that Altered is the one whose name is here.
Also, if there's any way to find altered text, it would be the Foxy grid, being it begins with faded letters saying ABC. God help anyone who tries to solve it. If the vengeful spirit isn't Golden Freddy, why does the Fredbear sprite talk to Old Man Consequences in the cutscene? Well, this scene is a FNaF World reference down to giving you an achievement in FNaF World if you unlock it. And in FNaF World, this isn't Fredbear, this is Adventure Freddy. So if we go by that logic, the vengeful spirit is Gabriel, who's pissed that he still hasn't gotten his fucking spaghetti wheels.
If you think the box holds Cassidy's body, do you think they actually would have shown that on screen in-game? Probably not. Cori thinks it might have shown bones. I personally subscribe to Bronze Film's theory from what's inside the FNaF 4 box that it would be Golden Freddy's head with the light in its eyes out, symbolizing that Cassidy was Golden Freddy Kid and that he has moved on now. But speaking of the box, now time for slightly longer theory update section. Since we posted our video, Twisted Animatronic posted his theory on the box's contents, and he does kind of agree with us that it's the Crying Child. But he also brings up this section from the fourth closet, which...
Here's the extremely interesting bit, lines 3 and 4, where he says, I can hear sounds I can't see. Now, there's only certain situations where you can hear sounds and can't see. The only other thing I can think of is that he would be in this box, because Charlie says exactly the same thing, and like I said, she was also in the box in the books, and this paragraph is what she actually feels inside of it. That's my name. Someone is saying my name. Charlie tried to open her eyes. Someone's arms reached down under her, lifting her from the cramped, dark place she'd been for so long that memories of somewhere else seemed like dreams. She still couldn't open her eyes. Now, it's worth pointing out that Charlie was obviously in the fourth closet in the box, but this is the FNaF 4 box we're talking about, and the amount of parallels it has with the crying child being in the FNaF 4 box is unreal.
So Charlie, in the box, specifically can hear and not see, like CC, and like a normal person after being locked in a trunk. I wouldn't know, I've always been on the other side of it. But second, what we realized was staring us right in the face was that Charlie was put in that trunk after she was killed by a Springlock Freddy animatronic and then literally put back together again. Well...
Also, we were asked how Cassidy can't see here but could respond to Charlie's "What do you see" on the mirror page? And the answer is symbolism! Also, we see Jake and Andrew seeing different things on the mortal and spirit plane.
Okay, now on to possibly our most frequently asked question. So, a lot of people asked us if we believe that William was the driver in Midnight Motorist, and Michael was the runaway, and this all happened after the bite, who the hell was in the chair? Because it can't be Cassidy.
And see, here's the thing. The reason we didn't put that in the video was because we legit just forgot it wouldn't be obvious. You know how, like, you'll just be talking to someone and you're like, yeah, it's pretty much the same thing as the end of Brother Bear, and they're like,
what in the hell are you talking about?
And then you realize not everyone has seen Brother Bear, and you've just seen it so much that you've forgotten its contents are not common knowledge, and you have to rush home and get your Blu-ray DVD copy and run back and get them sitting down.
The point is, we think the person in the chair was Elizabeth. We saw this Reddit post from Aldoria suggesting that Elizabeth may have been this girl by the swing set. She has the same clothing, color scheme, early concepts of baby show she was supposed to have brown hair, and the fence in this pic is the same fence as around the Afton house, perhaps with Cassidy entering through an off-screen gate.
Also note that the Fredbear plush has eye pinpricks here and not around any of the other street kids, implying that William is using the plush to spy on her as well, and that this kid has all 3 toy animatronics except for Mangle, who is in Elizabeth's room. She also talks to Cassidy like she knows him, just immediately telling him to look at her toys.
The reason we bring this up in context to Midnight Motorist is that it means that Elizabeth is old enough to form sentences by the time of the bite, let alone by the time of Midnight Motorist. So this sentence isn't out of the realm of realistic child development, and also the sprite is designed to look very similar to the base child sprite of FNaF 2, which implies the person in the chair is a kid.
It could be a Mrs. Afton, but as we'll discuss in a later video, we don't think she was around by this point. Anyway, next update. A couple people asked why William would automatically jump to shoving kids into suits as an experiment. And this one was on me, I forgot to put in a sentence or two that explains our thought process. We don't think that was his first thought. We think that either one of 2 things happened. The first option is that he didn't think it would do anything, but he just needed a convenient place to hide Susie after seeing the opportunity to lure and kill her, and Chica happened to be right there. Then when she started twitching, he started messing with the suits.
Our other option is that William just straight up killed Susie's dog. You know that Susie's dog is the cupcake theory? We're not 100% sold on it, but it is starting to make sense. Most scientists will do animal testing before testing on humans for obvious reasons, and William would probably test on animals before immediately jumping to kid killing. Could explain what he was up to during the probable 2 years between the bite and the MCI. If at the end of these experiments he either drunk drove and hit her dog or just picked it up off the road and managed to get it into the cupcake, then he'd have an idea of how to start locking human spirits in place.
And in this way, he actually eerily was not lying when he told Susie that he knew where her dog was. He did. And he was bringing her to him, in his own fucked up evil way.
And finally, speaking of that 2-year time gap,
after we made the video, and we keep kicking ourselves for looking this up so late, we did research on what the effects are if you lose your frontal lobe. Note that we don't have any confirmation that the frontal lobe is specifically what got injured on Cassidy, but we listened to Mangle's police radio and realized it was talking about a child being bit. And the bite of 87 hadn't happened yet by the time Mangle was trying to eat Jeremy's head. So unless we had multiple simultaneous bites, it's possible that Mangle was playing an old radio broadcast. Why would they do that? Oh, we have a whole thing and all
And
of
we're
that.
just gonna leave it there, it gets complicated. But if Cassidy lost his frontal lobe, we actually found out when it comes to the frontal lobe loss, it's actually recommended that you take the patient home as soon as possible. Being around familiar locations and people greatly helps their recovery, so Willy Boy wouldn't have even had to pull the parent card here. He might have had Cassidy with him for a long time. And another thing is that Cassidy might not have even been in a coma for his time of death, but rather a state of paralysis. Frontal lobe loss can cause either partial or complete body paralysis and difficulty communicating, or only do so on one side of his body, like the Monty Within talked about at length for so fucking long.
This also gives William time to experiment before jumping to murder. And also, as Summerlee Chorus, she/her on Tumblr points out, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, if William had money, and he had money, how else could he afford a fucking bunker, then palliative care so his son could recover at home is plausible. Even in the 80s it's plausible, considering that the 80s in the FNaF verse had advanced animatronics that even we don't have today. Plus, hospice care in America started to become a thing in 1973 in our universe. So by the time Cassidy gets got, he could probably be looked after at home. Also, it makes everything more tragic if Cassidy really had a chance to get better before his dad fucked everything up forever. Because people can get better from comas, and stupors. Brains can heal to some extent, especially for kids.
Speaking of going to Freddy's, that brings us to our final update from our buddy Cassie, handle @JoyFlameball, Zhe. One of the things people kept asking us was how Cassidy could possibly have been lumped in with the MCI, even if he disappeared around the same time. He wasn't at Freddy's, he was at his house.
And well, Cassie pointed out something that just had us jaws on the floor. So, we're gonna let Zem read you what Z wrote.
I feel like a lot of people, me included, forgot for a minute that there is no way in hell William would take the Fredbear suit to his house. That would be far too suspect and be far too much work. No. He would have taken Cassidy from the Afton house to Freddy's. The Springlock suits would most likely have been stored there. See Phone Guy's FNaF Theory Night 4 tape. And at this point, he would have known that there are cameras and they're going to see him. So what does he do? He wears the Spring Bonnie suit. He takes Cassidy from the Afton house to Freddy's in full Spring Bonnie gear, so no one realizes it's him specifically, and he puts him in the Fredbear suit in the safe room. So Cassidy's disappearance isn't just the owner's son randomly disappearing, it's someone in a Spring Bonnie suit kidnapped the owner's son from his own house and took him into Freddy's, and he disappeared. Which is far more similar to the other MCI. The only difference is that Cassidy wasn't lured into the safe room, he was taken. Future me addendum, this actually does fit with that thing Matt had pointed out, that William has a motif of being a kidnapper, what with him kidnapping Sammy/Charlie in the books, and him kidnapping and killing Garrett. Like, he sometimes will kidnap a child and then kill them. So it makes sense if Cassidy fits into that. Not to mention, this would be more evidence against Henry, because Henry probably would have known where William's house is. He's most likely one of the only people that does. Henry was the co-owner of Freddy's and refers to William as an old friend. Why wouldn't he know where it is? Of course it'd be Henry. He knows how to operate Springlock suits, and he knows where the house of the 5th missing child is. And isn't it just repulsive of him to kidnap a sick and dying child from his own home? We should throw his ass in the dungeon. Because no one would ever consider that it was William. No one would ever consider that he would kidnap his own son, just as no one would ever consider he's killing those kids and shoving them into the suits. Why would they? Why would anyone?
Into the Pit is going to drop in just over a week, and if it proves us wrong, cool! Then we get to start over from square one. If it's written and presented well, we're not going to be mad at the story taking a route that's different from what we expected. We're not writing it, we're just consumers. If we don't like it, we can drop it and talk about Sonic the Hedgehog. If we do like it, I can get a new plushie and squeal about Midnight Motorist theories.
We're currently almost done with our Amy Rose theory. We just want you guys to know that it's not going to be a huge dramatic video like our last one, and definitely not as long. We believe in it just as much, but this isn't going to be a Cassidy is the crying child reveal that recontextualizes the entire game series. It's just a fun little lightweight theory, and if you're here just for FNaF, don't worry, we'll have you covered in our next video.
See you then!